All right, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to my Leo Champions Guide. Leo's in, I don't know, what, like week and a half, maybe 2 weeks? It's on the 30th, plus it's soon. We'll say that. It's soon. But anyway, the upcoming Leo is much like the previous Taurus. It's a medium race again. One of the things to keep in mind about it being a medium is that if you like don't have time or unmotivated or whatever to actually make aces for this CM, you can potentially run your Taurus aces. You probably are capable of making better runners than you could have back then, so they're probably much weaker, but you can just throw them in there and they should do, I don't know, okay, right? They should do something. You don't have to build them all brand new. It's 2200 medium, right? It's in summer this time instead of spring like Taurus, but it's sunny and firm once more. So it's 200 meters shorter, but you also run faster on this track due to some specific stuff about the course. So the stamina requirements are probably about the same or maybe even a little higher, just for getting through the race. Speaking of the actual race, we have the course here. It's, you start like off the course on a little straight, and then you do one lap, and then you end here. There's no downhills on this racetrack, so gold ships recovery won't work on this track. Something to keep in mind, as well as anything else that activates on a downhill. I don't think there's too many interesting things going on there, but yeah, nothing that works on a downhill will activate. The race itself, again, you go around, and then the only thing that ever matters in these races is where's the spurt start. The final leg starts right here, a little bit before the final turn. It's like, I don't know how many, it's less than 100 meters. So redshift and shooting for victories activations will be slightly delayed. So that means pump and angling have an advantage here over these two. Pump obviously is very difficult to actually proc because it requires you to be in exactly 6th, which you can't really play for. It's just kind of like, if it happens to be you, then hooray, you get some acceleration. Angling and scheming is obviously the front runner meta. That's the front stuff. We'll cover that in a second. Other than that, there's nothing really super interesting about the course. So let's go talk about the stamina requirements. Like I said earlier, the stamina requirements in this race are pretty similar to Taurus. They should be about the same because the track's faster. This course has a stamina multiplier based, or not stamina, sorry, speed multiplier based on your speed. If you're above 900 speed, your speed stat is multiplied by 1.2 or increased by 20%, whichever way you want to think about it. So you end up running faster in the final leg, which means you burn more HP. So even though the race is shorter, you're running faster, so you're burning more HP. The fact that it is a medium means that, like Taurus, debuffing is going to be back in full force. So how much recovery and how much stamina you need will really depend on how much you think there's going to be debuffers and how effective you think they are. One of the things to think about debuffing that people don't like talk about a whole lot is that the debuffs aren't super reliable. Murmur is, it's okay. The problem with Murmur is that you need to be blocked in front for it to activate, and depending on the race and who's in it, that might be really difficult. If you have like a huge front group, like fronts and paces, and maybe just Nice Nature in the back, then she can't Murmur. If it's like 2 Nice Natures, then you'll probably get at least 1 Murmur because they'll end up blocking each other at least once. But like, it's not the easiest skill to activate, so it has to pass the wit check, and then it has to actually meet the conditions to activate. The All-Seeing Eye also has an issue, which is that it has a range on it. All-Seeing Eye will almost always miss whichever front runner is winning, because by the time All-Seeing Eye will go off, the front runner will have already angled and be out of range of All-Seeing Eye. So it will almost always miss whichever front runner is in position to be the front runner to win the race. So debuffing has limited effectiveness, but if it does go off, it's devastating. As you can see from the chart here, these are the numbers you need to pass, I guess, the stamina check on the course. Pace is always the highest, front will always be the lowest, and then late and end are usually about the same because their coefficients are pretty equal. Once you get into debuffing, the stamina requirements shoot up pretty heavily. But if you have a gold, you know, it drops stamina requirements by about 200. And then once you start countering your healing with debuffing, it just gets worse and worse. One of the ways to deal with the stamina debuffing in this race will be just to have as many gold recoveries as you can. In general, recoveries are the best way to counter getting debuffed because it's just it's literally the exact opposite of what a debuff does. It just gives you HP and debuffs just take it away. If you generate more stamina, so if your stamina stat is higher, debuffs hit you harder, but you know, they don't hit you for all the stamina, all the HP that you're gaining from increasing your stamina. So the best way to actually counter it is just with gold recoveries. We just don't have access to enough to deal with the amount of debuffs that are coming out. So if you're at like a 16% debuff, Murmur and All-Seeing Eye are both 3% each. So this is like 2 full Nice Natures hitting every single skill they have on you. With 3 goals, these are the stamina requirements you'll need. 950 for front, 1050 for pace, 1000 for late, 1000 for end. If you only have 2 golds, you can see it's pretty untenable. Getting 1200 stam and 1200 speed is unrealistic for anyone who has not invested a large amount of money into the game. One thing to think about is this chart is always assuming that all your heals always heal and that you're at 300 guts. If you get up to about 400 guts, which is what you will be if your stamina is this high, you can probably reduce the amount of stamina that's on the chart by like 50. So like late and end could probably get away with 1150. These numbers are all very borderline. Like if you have these stam numbers, if you rush, you're not going to finish the race at full speed. If you get hit by, you know, if you're looking at the 3%, if you end up taking 5%, then again, you won't finish the race at full speed. So these are like red line bare minimum numbers. So that's like, I guess, the general stamina and stuff like that. One other thing I want to talk about that's not on this sheet is like stats. Like I said earlier, your speed is being multiplied by 1.2 as long as your speed's above 900. That makes speed more valuable than normal because, you know, speed's obviously, you need speed to win, but also because it's being multiplied by your speed multiplier, every point of speed you have is worth more because it's worth 1.2 instead of 1. This also means that distance aptitude is also worth more. In the speed formulas, it's multiplied by your speed is multiplied by your aptitude bonus. So the higher your speed, the more valuable aptitude is. So in this race, 1200 speed and medium S is more valuable than it has been in the previous races. But if you're not meeting stamina requirements, then it doesn't matter if you have 1200 speed and medium S because you're not going to be utilizing it to its maximum bonus because you'll be running your final leg slower than what you're capable of. Another thing for stats is before cancer, wit was not a very good stat because fronts didn't really exist and position keeping wasn't that important. Now that fronts exist, we've seen a lot of, you know, there's a lot of talk about fronts need wit to position keep, but nobody talks about paces or lates or ends needing wit for position keep. But in reality, everyone needs to position keep. So if you're running whatever you're running, wit is now much more important than it used to be. If you're running 300 wit and the fronts are, you know, 20 lengths ahead of you because you never position keep, you just fail all your position keep checks, you're not going to be able to close that 20 length gap no matter how statted you are. So you've already lost before you even made it to the final leg. So everyone needs wit. Wit's like one of the most powerful stats just for position keeping. It increases your chance position keep. It increases your average speed through the opening and middle leg. And it helps with downhills. There's no downhills on this course, obviously, but it helps there as well. Wit is actually an extremely important stat now that front runners exist. So my recommendation would be hit stamina bonus, hit 1200 speed, not stamina bonus, hit the stamina requirement, hit 1200 speed, and then probably want your wit at like 600. Your power just from getting speed to 1200 would likely be like 600, which is fine, because you're dealing with your final leg acceleration already by using the skills here that you'll always use in, like, you know, every CM. There's angling and pump, ren shift and shooting, right? These supplement your acceleration in the final leg. So you're having a lower acceleration doesn't hurt as much. But let's move on to some aces or characters, I guess. These aren't all aces to run for this CM. The front runners are, you know, Saiyan Sky, she's been around for a while. And then Maruzensky, who just came out. And then I guess I added another one who has a heal, which is Bourbon. She has Track Blazer. People really like Maruzensky right now because of her unique, but I still think Saiyan Sky is the better front. Her body is a machine that turns middle leg first positions into wins. If Saiyan Sky wins the position keep battle, I guess you want to call it, it's almost impossible to beat her. If she pops angling and scheming, it's extremely hard to beat her. And she comes with one built-in green for groundwork, so she's a little bit easier to raise than Maruzensky is. Maruzensky comes with 0 greens, so you need to find all her greens and groundwork. The upside of her is, again, she's probably going to have a slightly higher middle leg completion time than Sayun because of her unique. Gives her a pretty good mid-leg velocity skill that goes off after position keep. And then she also comes with a gold heal built in. So Saiyan Sky has no gold heals built in, so the stamina part of this race with all the debuffers and stuff is a little bit harder for her. But like I said earlier, whichever front runner wins the angling and scheming contest will likely dodge All-Seeing Eye. So you really only have to worry about Murmur. And then, like I said earlier, Bourbon, there's no really advantage to running Bourbon over Summer Maru. The only thing would be if you have her and you don't have Summer Maru, because they both come with a heal, and Maru's unique's slightly better. Some support cards that are pretty decent for front runners. The new charity card for Narita Bryan is interesting. It's not a terrible stat stick. It's pretty average, but it also gives medium straight, medium corners, and right-handed. It also gives some pace recovery skills, but, you know, fronts don't care about that. So it gives you right-handed, and it gives you some medium leg, it gives you some mid-leg skills. So it's pretty decent. Its biggest downside is it comes with 0 initial friendship. So it starts at 0. It's a little awkward, especially if you're running like a Top Gun or something as well, because Top Gun also comes with initial friendship of 0. So it's an option if you don't have anything better. I personally use it because it's not that bad. Kita-san's obviously here. King Halo's here. She's like the best stat stick outside of Sweep. I think these two are really comparable. And then the new Windy card's pretty good. Most people probably won't have it, but I put it there just because it's an SR card. There's other cards you could run here that I just didn't put in here because this is not an exhaustive list. You know, if you have a Suzuka or whatever. Suzuka does give you left-handed, so it's not super great, but you know, whatever speed cards you have that are good stat sticks. In particular for this race, because it's so stat heavy, as you're building your characters, I do think you should prioritize hitting proper stats over hitting certain skills. So that's like where Bryan kind of comes in. She can give you skills that are decent, and she's a good stat stick. If you're gonna use some card that's not good for stats just to chase some skills, I don't think that's a great idea. We have stamina. Creek's always gonna exist in any race where you need a recovery, so Creek's here. Cafe and Top Gun are both pretty good secondary stamina cards, and then Diamond is actually pretty decent for front runners in this course, it gives Firm and Sunny Days, so 2 more green skills you could use. It's with some LBs, it's also a good stat stick. If you have 0 LB, I don't think you should use it. I think you should use one of these 2 or another stamina card you have that's better, because it gives Firm, but Creek also gives Firm, so there's some overlap here. As for wit cards, you have Matekane, who gives right-handed, and you have Fuji, who gives Summer Runner. Also, I don't know if I said this, but Brian gives right-handed, so it's another reason to run Brian. She also gives right-handed. So if you need to chase these green skills to make your groundwork work, these are some options. I don't recommend Power or Guts cards for this course because it's way too stat restrictive. You're gonna have a really hard time hitting stamina cap or the stamina threshold and then hitting 1200 speed and getting all your greens. It's extremely difficult to make a front runner on this course. So now let's go down to pace chasers. Dodo's not out yet, but she'll be coming out before Leo hits. Leo's unique's kind of gambly. She needs to pass a runner and be at most 3rd, so 3rd or further back. So if she is able to pass a dying front and is in the right position, she can get a pretty decent acceleration just from her unique. It's a 0.3, so it's not as strong as angling and scheming, but she can use that and then like redshift and shooting or something like that just to give her a pretty good acceleration. Her gold heal that she gets is a little weird. It's indomitable. It requires her to be passed for it to activate. This shouldn't be too hard to proc unless she's the only pace chaser in the race, or the other pace chasers just aren't position keeping, because realistically you end up passing each other back and forth during position keep. It happens all the time. It's not like you're never gonna get passed in position keep, so this should realistically be pretty reliable unless she's the only pace. One thing I am a little worried about is I was running a Taiki shuttle just to try and see if it will work, and I was running into the constant problem of my Taiki shuttle would pop shooting for victory, and then she'd immediately just run into the person in front of her and just get stuck there. So I am a little worried that Dodo might also fall into that trap, but we'll see, I guess, when she comes out. The next, and I think probably the strongest pace actually for this course, assuming Dodo doesn't end up being pretty good, is Ogre. Triumphant Pulse is very strong. It's very good for running down front runners. And then you just give her, you know, shooting and redshift like normal. She comes with a built-in heal, so it makes her more resilient to front runners. And then you can get her swinging Maestro for her second, and she'll be fairly resilient to debuffers. She eats a whole lot of stamina debuffs. She'll die just like everyone else. And the last like recommendation for a pace chaser, I would say, is someone like Agnes, just someone who has a lot of heals. With Agnes, she has the built-in heal, and then I think she gets Race Planner, and then you can grab Swinging Maestro from Super Creek, and that's a 3 heal Uma. You could grab Gourmand too if you really wanted to. You make a 4 heal Uma, and then she's like pretty much impossible to kill, assuming she activates her heals. I don't recommend that because that's way too many skill points, but I think 3 heals and then decent stats would make a very resilient pace in case there ends up being, you end up getting into a 4 debuff lobby. This will not die to that. Another pace who can do this is Anime Teo. She has something step. I don't know what her gold's called. She has a gold that only she has. And then one of these two, I forget which one. And then you just give her Super Creek and she'll have 3 golds. Again, that's a lot of skill points. 3 gold heals spending skill points on doesn't really leave you much for other things, but if you're just looking to survive, then if everyone else is dead but you and you're out there running, it doesn't really matter if you have mid leg or not, because nobody's going to be running very fast, so you should beat everybody. You didn't see that Aishin flash sitting there. But for pace cards, I really recommend 4 speed 2 stam. If you can hit 1200 speed and the stamina requirement, you could maybe squeak one of the speed cards out for a wit card, like a Dober or something like that, just to try to get some wit easier. but I think that's going to be extremely difficult to do, and unless you've invested quite a bit of money, you're going to really struggle to get just the bare minimum speed stamina requirements for this race. So these are all the same. This is like pretty much all the same as the front runners. I added Rob Roy in here. She's like a decent stat stick, but she's new, so people probably won't have her at MLB. But if you do, then you know she's pretty good. Pace chasers don't really have any specific cards that are good for them, so yeah. Next we'll have late surgers. Late surgers are gonna be, you know, your dominator aces, debuffers, and if you run a gamble, you can try running Ryan. But so for our late surgers, the two that come baseline with dominator is Rudolph and Grass. I think Rudolph is actually pretty good on this track. I have a Rudolph that's pretty decent, and she usually does pretty well. The biggest thing with running these characters is you should 100% build them as aces. That way, if they end up positioning poorly, right, they have dominator, and if they don't end up positioning poorly and they end up getting like pump, they can very easily still win the race. So you give them pump and, you know, red shift like normal, and then if they end up being in 7th, 8th, or 9th where they can't hit an acceleration skill, then they can fall back to dominator or something. Or if they hit 6th or something and everyone in front of them is also just like fast, they can still hit dominator, or they can hit dominator right at the beginning of the final leg, and then that's also great. The big issue with late surgers is that they don't have access to gold heals. There's nothing. They have Swinging Maestro, and then you have Bofa. And Bofa is very, very bad. So I really hate getting Bofa. I'm not going to take it this CM. I'm going to try to get stamina that's required instead, because Bofa is so completely unreliable. Next is the obvious choice, because this is a medium. We have Nice Natty. It's pretty standard debuffer build. You get your gold debuffs, you get some whites if you want them, and you get moderately high stats. You don't need to get 1200 wit. It doesn't really do that much. In fact, having a lot of wit might actually hurt you, because you might be hard to get blocked if you have high wit. Your Umo will run very well. They will position keep a lot, and they'll might end up just outpacing all the other lates and stuff, and then just have nobody to block them. So you don't really want to have super high wit. You actually want a pretty decent all-around stat line, like I don't know, like 600 everything, or maybe slightly higher, because you also don't want to die immediately into the final egg. You want to chase so that you have a higher chance of all-seeing eyes actually hitting people. You also want to get late surger savvy on here, so all-seeing eyes goes further. But even with that, you're still likely not going to hit the front runner, so just keep that in mind. The last late surger I have here is Ryan. Ryan is just pure gamble. If you hit pump, I don't think it's possible anyone beats you unless you hit pump and you're really far behind Sand Sky, or then I think you can lose. But other than that, I don't think Ryan hitting pump loses to anything. The biggest thing again is that you can't plan for pump. It's random. You just have to find yourself in 6th. There's no way for this to be like for fronts. It's not that hard. You just be the best runner there is on the field, the best front runner, right? And that's how you hit angling. For hitting pump, it's just like, man, I hope I'm in 6th. I hope either there's 5 fronts and paces in front of me and then I'm in first for the late surgers, or there's some late surgers that are better than me and some that are worse. It's completely random. So yeah. And the other thing that could happen is just she hits pump and there's someone in front of her and she just runs right into their back and just sits there. Sport cards are the same as Pace, except Flash is here because Flash has good late surger stuff. The thing with these speed cards also, like Flash wasn't in the Pace or the front runner. Realistically, like I said earlier, you just want stats. You want whoever your best stat sticks are, because the stat requirements are pretty difficult to hit. Then we move on to end closers. You saw in the thumbnail and in the start that I think Gold Chip is going to be extremely difficult to deal with on this race, just like she was in Taurus. She was very good in Taurus, and she'll be very good again in Leo. The biggest thing that will hold her back is that Go Home Specialist does not work on this track. So she only has one reliable gold recovery. So she's very susceptible to debuffing. As long as she doesn't position super poorly, I think she can end up stealing a lot of wins from Summer Marzenskis. Because Angling and Scheming is way, way weaker on, you know, people that aren't Saiyan Sky. So I do think Gold Ship will be a menace on this racetrack. Next, we have the new debuffer, who is Top Gun Bride. She comes with Mystifying Murmur. So you can run her late or end and try to hit murmurs, but also you should still build her as an ace. Her unique, when from the back, will give her an acceleration. So if you're in 6th through 8th and you pass somebody, so you end up 5 through 7th in the late race, you will pop Flowery Maneuver and you'll get an acceleration boost. I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. You'll get an acceleration boost of 0.4, which is the same strength as native Angling and Scheming. So it's extremely strong acceleration, but you do need to overtake somebody. So it's a little bit hard to proc. The last one I have in here is Swimsuit Spare. Swimsuit Spare is an interesting Uma. If you can stack a bunch of stats on her, she does come with a built-in recovery. The only thing it needs to go off is 2 mid-leg skills. She also comes with It's On and Fast and Furious, which are both middle, like, gold skills. They're okay. They're not like the best of the best, but they're not bad either. They're definitely worth getting. So she comes with decent mid-leg velocity skills, and she comes with a built-in heal. So her with Swinging Maestro gives her double gold heal, which is very, very good for a debuff heavy course. If you're going to run these as end, the only difference in skill is now we have Narita Taishin for corners and corners. But otherwise, you know, same as before, stats are key in this race. So that's just some examples of some characters you can build. I do have another T-Cop section where some things you could do overall and things to avoid. So I think if you're going to run a front, I think this makes the most sense to one front, one pace, one debuff, or one front, one pace, and anything. You know, you can run another ace here. You can run a hybrid, whatever. Just one front, one pace, and then something for the back half of the pack. Because it lets you run your front, which you want to do, and then if your front's the only front that's on the course, you then have a pace to overtake your front to try and get the win. Because we all know a solo front is extremely weak. They don't have anyone to position keep against, and the whole pack ends up like right behind them. Realistically, I don't think there's going to be too many times where you're solo front running, but if you are, then you know you have a backup plan. And if you have not a debuffer here, you have 2 backup plans. The next one, which is what I'm trying to do, is 1 survival pace and 2 high stat aces. I was going to run 3 aces, like I said earlier, with the Taiki Shuttle, but the Taiki Shuttle wasn't working. So I ixnayed it. And now I think I'm going to run a survival Agnes and then 2 aces, Gold Ship, and then a ace Rudolph with Dominator. The plan for this is the 2 aces that are not the survival ace, not Agnes, they're going to be lower in stamina. So assuming like light debuffing or no debuffing, because the way that this is like rock, paper, scissors, right? Debuffers beat stamina debuffers, I should say, beat low stamina aces, but low stamina aces beat high stamina aces, but high stamina aces survive debuffers. So it's kind of like a rock, paper, scissors of who's better than who. So my plan is to have 2 high stat aces to hopefully survive, like either avoid debuffs, or if there are no debuffs, they can just win. And then if there happens to be a lot of debuffs or a lot of debuffs land, then hopefully my Agnes survives and has a chance of winning. The next one is, I guess, kind of the same as this. Like I already actually talked about it. 1 front and then 1 debuff, 1 late end. Instead of having the pace, you can have a late/end. It gives you, again, the late/end for pump, but it takes away your pace backup in case you're the only front. But you just replace it with a late/end who can also hopefully win you the race. The last one that I have, or not the last, there's another one. The second to last one I have is 1 pace and 2 debuffs. This is pretty much, I think, only Ogre Cap does this. I don't think there's another pace that does this well. Maybe you can try it with Dodo, but you run like your main ace as a pace chaser. You run Nice Nature, and then you run some hybrid. Probably it would be Bride Mayano. But you could run like a speed debuffer too, like Rudolph or something. The biggest thing with this is you have to run this with a pace. Do not run it with a front, and do not run it with another late/end. Both of those situations put you in a position where your team just auto loses to certain compositions. So this has to be with a pace. And this pace has to also be survival. Ogre comes with the built-in heal, so she's a good option for it. But yeah, like I said earlier, Dodo also comes with a built-in heal, so she might work as well. The last build I have would be 2 front and then 1 late/end. This would work either as a debuffer or an actual ace. I don't like running 2 fronts because I think there will be more than likely fronts in every race, so I don't think you need to run 2 of your own fronts. But if you're worried that the other fronts aren't going to be there, or you think they're like bad enough that they can't keep up with your front, then you can run 2 fronts. Yeah, the reason why I don't like this is because the 2 fronts that you're running, only one of them has any chance of winning, right? Whichever one ends up being in first. So you're essentially running an ace and a helper ace, right? Because both of them don't have a chance of winning. So I don't like this comp a lot. But if you think that front runner is unbeatable, or you're like very high statted, if you're high investment and you can get crazy stats and skills on your Umas, then this could work, because I think front is indeed extremely hard to beat if they are extremely high stat. And then the 2 comps that I think you should not run, period, because they auto lose to stuff. 1 front and 2 debuff. So this is like 2 hard debuffers, not a hybrid. A hybrid still isn't, it's not my favorite here, but you can do it. But if you have 2 full debuffers, this auto loses if you're the only front in the lobby. Because realistically, as a solo front, you will not win races. There are situations where you might, but majority of the time, you will not win as a solo front, no matter who you are, even if you're Saiyan Sky, even if you hit angling on Saiyan Sky, because there's not enough gap between you and the rest of the racers for you to hold them off to win, because fronts are slow at the end of the day. In the final leg, fronts are by far the slowest racers. And then the other comp that I think you definitely shouldn't run is 3 lates and ends. This doesn't work. If you're the only one in the lobby running lates and ends, then that automatically puts you in positions 7, 8, and 9. So unless you can pass a pace chaser with like Gold Chi, you have no acceleration. You can't even hit pump. The only exception would be Bride Mayano's acceleration. She can hit it if she passes somebody. But I mean, why would she pass one of your other aces, assuming they're all like moderately the same stats? So this pretty much auto loses if you're the only lates and ends in the lobby. How realistic is that to happen? I don't think it's that would be that common, but it is a situation where you just lose. So better just to take a pace or something instead of 3 lates and ends, just to make sure you're safe and good to go. The last thing I want to talk about is skills. We have some skills here that are decent or good for this race. The generic good skills would be right-handed, summer, firm, and then the 2 stamina, so Hanshin and non-standard. These are good on everybody, especially speed. Speed's really nice. Power is helpful, especially for the start if you're not a front. I mean, he's in a front, it's not bad, but fronts have groundwork to get their initial speed up. Everyone else is just hoofing it. So firm condition's good for that. It's also good for just, you know, having higher power, dealing with the uphills, and dealing with having to accelerate every time you hit a skill or position keep or whatever. Beyond that, you have distance/style corner. So this is medium and whatever style you are, front, pace, late, and whatever. And same thing with straightaways. These are both fine. Straightaways is slightly less value than corners because it can proc at bad times. Corners is generally pretty safe. Then you have tail held high, playtime's over, and slipstream. These are, again, generally good on everybody. They have pretty high value and or are pretty cheap to learn. Ramp up and its upgrade of It's On. So if there's two names like this is the white skill and this is the gold skill. These are also good. This requires you just to pass somebody. And then Corner Out and Professor Curvature are also pretty decent. These end up usually being pretty expensive for how much they give you, but they're fine to take. And then we move on to specific style skills. Front runners can look for Sunny Days and Front Runner Savvy for them to finish their groundwork. And then they also have Escape Artist, which is like by far the best mid-leg velocity skill in the game. If you have access to this is extremely good. This is on the, I think, the Saiyan Sky Stamina card, which is actually a pretty decent stat stick if it's high LB. But this is not worth chasing if it's going to end up making your stats way worse. So don't bother chasing this. Just make sure your stats are good. Pace Chasers. Okay, anyway, Light Surgers. Precision Pilfer and Fast and Furious they're fine. You can take them. The rate's better than nothing. 1,500,000cc is an interesting skill. It gives you velocity on an uphill, which is usually bad. And this also applies to Highlander. This gives you acceleration on an uphill, which is usually bad. But because of the specifics of this course, those go off the first uphill you hit, which is right here. So you hit the skill, and then as you go to this line right here, this is the transition between opening and middle leg. Lates and ends from opening leg to middle leg have to accelerate a pretty large amount. So the skills are still active by the time you get to here. And then Highlander is active for a while, but 1,500,000cc ends pretty shortly. But that means that you start this acceleration at a higher initial velocity because 1,500,000cc is still active. And then Highlander helps you accelerate to your new cruising speed in the middle leg. So both of them had value for late and ends, but only lates and ends. Both front runners and pace chasers don't have as big of a speed change here. Front runners actually lose speed between opening and middle leg, and then pace chasers, their two velocities are pretty similar, so it's not really worth it for them. It's really just for late and ends. So that's why that's there for both of them. And then end closers also have Masterful Gambit. This is just gives you a little bit of a velocity before the final leg. I think this is late surger only. I think that's why I have that only there. And then we have gambling skills. Corner acceleration. This is like super gambly. I don't recommend this. Final and Unrestrained are also super gambly, and so is On Your Left. These are all very gambly when we have more reliable, guaranteed uniques that are going to go off. So I think these are almost usually not worth the skill points. If you do hit them at like perfect timing, they are insanely valuable, but the chance of that is extremely low. So I don't recommend picking these up, but if you like to gamble, go for it. I think that's it for this CM. Like I said, it's really super important that you hit your stamina and you hit 1200 speed. That's like #1 priority. Once you do that, then you can look to get like 600 wit, and then you can look for like maybe making some trades to look for more skills. Stats are really big for winning races, much bigger than like 1 gold mid-leg velocity skill would be. So I super recommend you just focus on getting the correct stats, and then maybe you'll RNG into some skills, like if you're running the Brian card. Maybe you'll end up getting medium, straight, and corner from her, or right-handed, or whatever. So yeah, that'll be it for this video. Thanks everybody for watching. If you've got any additions to this video or things you think are wrong or whatever, you know, feel free to put them in the comments. And yeah, good luck to everyone in Leo, and I will catch you all later. See ya.